we don't use words like, oh, our worker or our unskilled labor. Like, imagine referring to your employees as unskilled labor and expecting them to be happy. We also don't use the words minimum wage. We use starting income because it's a start of where you will be within this company. And our starting income is $19 per hour. I'm in Ontario, in Toronto specifically, and minimum wage is 15. So we pay well above that. When I share that with other entrepreneurs, regardless of industry, they immediately say, oh, do you even make money? Yeah, we do, because our people don't turn over. We do, because these are committed individuals who deliver an experience that our customers have never seen before, and those customers come back. These individuals produce our product the exact same way, every single day, and then our customers come back, and we have some customer loyalty there also. So having company culture really pays.
Welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow?
You know that culture is important to the growth of your business, but how important is it? Well, it really does impact the bottom line. It's retention. It's being able to onboard the right people and get them up to speed. Your culture matters more than you probably even know. Today, we're going to talk about reimagining company culture. Our special guest today is Michel Falcon. He is the founder of Brasa Peruvian Kitchen. They're a fast service kitchen where restaurants concept out of Toronto. The reason I'm having him on to discuss culture is because they're doing something very different in many different areas, very radical when it comes to culture. Inside of an industry like restaurants, where turnover is 150% per year, or the employee net promoter score is less than 20% across the average, they are performing at a much higher rate. They haven't lost an employee in 7 months. They also have an employee net promoter score of over 70. And I share all these numbers with you because I want you to understand this is something they measure to be able to see where they are, but the real measurement is the impact it makes to the bottom line. Reimagining company culture is today's topic. And if you want to be a leader who is able to do that and you're not sure what's missing, let's have a conversation. Let's dive into the numbers, into the business, into the leadership gap that's going on inside your business. I want to give you some insight, create a game plan for you. And if you want to do that, just go to genehammett.com and schedule your call right away. Now, inside those conversations, we will get to the nitty gritty and it will be a little bit difficult. And I say this up front because you've got to be able to withstand some of the feedback I'm giving you back and the questions I'm able to ask you because of all the decade of experience and even 3 decades of running businesses. I would love to be able to provide some insight to what's going on inside your business. If you want a better culture, you want better leadership, you just want to activate growth, let's have that conversation. Go to genehammett.com and schedule that call. Now, here's the interview with Michel. Michel, how are you?
I'm doing well, Gene. Thank you very much for having me. Looking forward to the conversation.
To have you on the podcast. We're going to dive in here and talk about culture today and really try to get a fresh perspective on it. But tell us about your business, Brasa Peruvian Kitchen.
Brasa Peruvian Kitchen is a fast casual restaurant brand that I started in the pandemic. I'm not new to restaurants. This is going to very likely be my last business that I start. Not because I don't like entrepreneurship, but I'm just giving it my all. I'm Canadian Peruvian, and one of our missions is to have millions of people explore the flavors of the country. And while we have their attention, teach them about the art, the history, and the music that comes with the country to create a brand that I see has the opportunity to go international. We're starting in Toronto. We started in Toronto in 2021, and we're looking at expanding to the US next year in 2023.
That's exciting. Restaurants are a hard business to have culture in. Tell me a little bit about some of the challenges that restaurants face when it comes to culture.
It would be easier to tell you what isn't a challenge. From the pandemic to now inflation and rising price of perishable items, right? Like rising costs in everything right now, but imagine it being perishable items. That's another layer of difficulty. Culture is difficult in this industry because most workplaces in this industry are uninspiring. It is an industry that has exploited minimum wage for decades, and people are starting to wake up to that. And this whole notion of a labor shortage, I rejected that idea during the pandemic. It was just a revolt of people that didn't want to work for uninspiring workplaces and be paid very little. And I'm thankful that I started the brand during the pandemic because I had a blank canvas. And when we went to go establish what the price of our food was going to be, our menu items, I started with what I wanted to pay our team members first, and then figure out our COGS and food cost, and what is the market charge, and then add our margin, and that's the end price. I believe that will prove to be a very advantageous time that I had the opportunity to do that, because culture, yes, it is working with like-minded people and so forth. But it also matters, like, how am I treated, not just through words, but how am I paid? And that keeps our retention very high. We haven't had a turnover in 7 months, consecutive months. That is unheard of in our industry, and I think we're onto something.
I think when we were talking before we hit on the recorder, you had shared with me some of the industry data of retention across fast casual restaurants. Do you have better numbers than I can come up with on that?
Sure, there's 150% turnover every year. So imagine building your team 1.5 times every single year. That is very costly. That eats at your bottom line. So when people hear that our starting income, and Gene, culture, language and culture matters. What type of words you use in your workplace really matters. So we don't use words like, oh, our worker or our unskilled labor. Like, imagine referring to your employees as unskilled labor and expecting them to be happy. We also don't use the words minimum wage. We use starting income because it's a start of where you will be within this company. And our starting income is $19 per hour. I'm in Ontario, in Toronto specifically, and minimum wage is 15. So we pay well above that. When I share that with other entrepreneurs, regardless of industry, they immediately say, oh, do you even make money? Yeah, we do, because our people don't turn over. We do, because these are committed individuals who deliver an experience that our customers have never seen before, and those customers come back. These individuals produce our product the exact same way, every single day, and then our customers come back, and we have some customer loyalty there also. So having company culture really pays. And look, we maybe have been a part of a company before or run organizations that have high turnover. How aggravating is that when you think you've got the right team and then 2 people leave and back to recruiting? So statistics are not very friendly to this industry, but you're either going to be a statistic or you're going to pave your own path. And that's what we're choosing. That's what we have chosen to do.
I want to get into the stats, Michel, but I want to ask you this. You said company culture pays. I would imagine what you're saying is it really matters to the bottom line that you have the right culture. Do you have how do you track that inside your own businesses?
Yeah, well, one of the metrics that we look at is employee retention, but I'm not, I don't find religion in that statistic, because if somebody wants to leave, Gene, to do something else, but they leave on good terms and we're happy for them, technically that hurts our retention rate, but it's for the best. So I'm not married to that statistic, but that's one of the KPIs that we're looking at. We also look at how much does it cost us to recruit, interview, onboard, train new team members, and what does that mean to our bottom line if we're able to keep our turnover at, let's say, 20% versus 15%. There's real money there, and there's with a little bit of effort you can determine what those cost savings are. And when you're able to figure out that number, I guarantee you, Gene, and anybody listening, you're going to take a different approach to what you're currently doing, because you'll realize how much money you're leaving on the table. Not to mention, when you think of your personal life, Gene, the closest people you have in your personal life are individuals that you fostered relationships with, and the team members, part of your organization, also put forth that effort. And when it's constantly, it's like a revolving door at your company. Like, how on earth can you ask a team to build that camaraderie to deliver that experience to your customers that they've never seen before, when that's always happening? Company culture does pay, but it is your responsibility as the business leader to determine what that actually means in dollars and cents.
Now, Michel's been talking to you about retention. One key factor that you want to be able to put your finger on is the employee net promoter score. And you may have heard Net Promoter Score as a way of tuning into what customers believe about your brand. This is what your employees believe about your brand and what's going on there. Now, there's a complex, or not too complex, but there's sort of a complex factor around this. If you rate someone from 0 to 10, the 10s count towards your score and the 9s count towards your score. But 7 and 8 are neutral, and then everything else is a negative. And so, because they will never promote people to the score unless they are 9 and 10. And so you want to be able to look this up and be able to track where you are within your company. The employee net promoter score is an easy factor to be able to see where you are. I was talking to Michel, his industry averages are over 70%, and no, his customer averages are over 70%, and the industry is around 20%. So think about that gap. It really is an important tool to use to track where you are. Back to Michel. I want to dive into the brass tacks of this. I know most of the people listening in don't have restaurants, so if you can kind of create your content or your talking points in a way that it might serve other industries, what are the key steps of culture to you?
Right. And regardless of what industry it is, like look around you. Some of the companies that you admire aren't for company culture, aren't restaurants, they're retail, they're technology companies. So that, it is relevant to any industry. But the key steps, and we've heard this before, what are your mission? What are your values? And how do you live them every single day? It's so easy, Gene, just to decal something on the wall and say, these are our values, and then, cross off your to-do list. What we do is we'll take these values and really obsess over them. It's something we talk about every single day in our daily and weekly meetings that we have with our team members. We have a total of 11 core values, and we ask one question per core value in our culture interviews for any position that we hire. So whether we're hiring a controller, a marketer, or a frontline team member at a retail stores, we're asking the same questions. Not only that, we frame the interview so that, Gene, you might be in a first interview with, and let's say you've applied to be our bookkeeper. That first interview, you might be in a room with a marketer. You might be in the same virtual room as a full-time team member. Because for us, it doesn't really care about it doesn't matter about the position. It's, do we believe you're going to fit in this culture that have these set values? And it's the interview process that you have to really critique. You have to audit it to make sure that you are stopping people from getting inside of your business, because that is what's going to erode your culture. And you have to be very strict. Netflix says something brilliant. It's a common saying in Netflix head office and through other organizations. They say, we will not tolerate brilliant jerks because the cost of teamwork is too high. And we have all worked with that individual who was talented and protected by their manager because they were talented, but they were not a culture fit. Samantha is a great salesperson. We couldn't lose her, and we'll ignore all her faults. That is a recipe for disaster, and I've seen it so many times. And I'll give you one statistic here. We were recruiting for a position. We had 134 applications in 48 hours. I went through all of them. Only 4 people got invited to an interview. Now, I'm short of the hiring goal that I have, but I have to, and it's frustrating and it's hard, but I have to stay true to the values of our company, or else it means nothing. And our culture is hollow. And that's what worries me, is a day that our culture starts to erode.
I love all of this. And I've said some of these same exact things. I've had Mark Rudolph on the show from Netflix.
Yeah.
The importance of culture. We've had Cameron Harold, which you've worked with at 1-800-GOT-JUNK, Brian Scudamore. So, you've come from a history of people that have a huge voice inside of this importance of culture, but you've made it your own. Like they're coming to you as experts beyond mission and values. What else is important to get a culture right?
Onboarding. For me, onboarding is a compass of a few things. Like, let's say, Gene, I'm going to do a little role play here with you. And this is the interview question that leads to our onboarding that literally has been ripped off by hundreds of companies after they've heard that we asked this. Subway, Electronic Arts, you name it, have all now used this question. So Gene, pretend that you're going to be interviewing with me as whatever position. It's actually irrelevant whether you're legal or controller or whatever. But Gene, what is an indulgence that you cannot live without that costs less than $20? For me, it's pepperoni pizza. Like that's
Yeah.
my thing, right? I would cease to exist if there was no pepperoni pizza in this world. But what's your thing? And remember, I'm asking this question to you.
I'm going to say recently, and I haven't talked about a brand before like this on the show, but there's a protein bar at Trader Joe's called Barbells.
Barbells. Okay. Is there a particular flavor?
It's, there's all the flavors are pretty damn good.
Okay, fair. Okay, cool.
Tastes like a candy bar. It has the 20 grams of protein that I need to like balance out some of my workouts. And I just love that little treat.
So on we go with the interview. I've documented this answer. And Gene, let's say we do end up hiring you. On day one of onboarding, the first thing we do when you get to our store or our head office, first thing we're going to do is present you with a handwritten card, and language matters. So we're going to say, Gene, thank you for choosing us. You're a very talented person. And we're certain that you could have been hired by anybody. Thank you for choosing us. And then, we are presenting you with a box of barbell protein bars in a variety of flavors because Gene likes all of them, right? And we wrote this down. Now, that alone, not enough. Like, why, that's like, oh, great, that's nice, protein bars. But here's the message it sends. Notice, Gene, I didn't just I dug a little deeper. I didn't just say protein bars and gift you with anything. I got the barbell ones and I got a variety of different flavors. That is personalization. So that, Gene, now I've earned the permission to ask you to deliver a personalized customer experience to our guests and our customers that come to our business. But here's another thing. From this day forward, I'm going to ask you to create an experience for our guests and your colleagues that they've never seen before as a member of our culture. I need to show what that looks like to you first. And it's little things like this, and it's called the $20 question, that allows us to be able to replicate that. Now, that I need you going back to your home or speaking to your friends after day one and say, whoa, this is a different type of company. Right. I've been able to kind of peer in and I really like what I see. And not to mention, it matches what it says on their website. Right. It matches what the recruiter told me about this place. That's one element. And then the second part, so how do you take what you present about your culture on your website and how the recruiting manager profiles your company to day one? That's the first step in being able to showcase that culture. And then the next part of it, and there's many elements to it, but the next part that I work on with our management team is how are we pounding this drum every single day? So for us, we have huddles before the day. 1-800-GOT-JUNK also has huddles at 10:55 every day. They get together for 7 minutes. This is where I learned this. And we pick one core value to talk about and focus on that single day. Now, before you know it, we have 11 values. Before you know it, people are just going to memorize what those values are. And here's a tip. Whether you have a mission statement, a vision, or values, anybody listening to this episode, go and ask 3 people at your company, email them if you're virtual, and ask them if they can recite your values. Now, if they can't, that's your biggest problem, is you haven't embedded this into the culture of your company deep enough. Those are a few things that I would be looking at. But the number one non-negotiable for me is I don't care how talented the person is. If they don't fly straight within our values, they're out. We will coach them, but then eventually we're going to pull the ripcord. I can't sacrifice it.
I want to highlight something for you. Michel talked about the $20 question, which is something to the effect of, what is something you like to indulge yourself in that's under $20 and a brand or something that you really like? And you want them to tell you that, and you write it down. If you decide to hire that person, you're going to be able to buy that for them with a custom note, personalize it in some way, and you give them that gift as a demonstration of customer service, as a demonstration of giving. All of these together allow you to be able to point back to this inside of conversations about what does it take to go above and beyond. This is just one example of what you can do, but it really is special. The onboarding experience is difficult enough for new employees. I always like to remind my clients, you want to make sure that anybody who's onboarding, that they go home to their friends or their significant other and they say, you know what, I'm really glad I made that decision. And you want to reverse engineer the experience of the onboarding day so that you have them say that at the end of the day, that they're willing to say that they had such an amazing time, they made the right choice to their significant other or to their friends. That's one of the things I use. So you can combine all these together to create a really unique experience for onboarding. Back to Michel. I agree. I've written some articles for Inc. magazine around the same thing. And I use this sales example because it's so clear. When you have a high performing salesperson that is toxic, I literally had a client once tell me, I said, how would you describe her toxicity? Well, she lies to me and lies to everyone else. I'm like, and you put up with that? And they're like, yes, because she's an excellent salesperson. And I just looked at them and said, I don't get it.
Well, let me put it this way. Think of the strongest relationships you have in your personal life. Would you tolerate somebody lying to you there because they're handsome and tall, or it just doesn't make sense. We have to behave in the workplace like we do in our professional lives, in our professional. Sorry, we have to behave in the workplace like we do in our personal lives, and that's when we're going to start being really authentic in how we grow our companies.
I know we're going to run out of time here, but I want to kind of dive in on something. You got a few more minutes?
Of course.
When you've got a culture that's heading in the wrong direction, you realize, okay, we need to rethink this. What are 2 or 3 things that we can really focus on? Like, give us the high level of remapping and imagining our culture.
Yeah. So there's no one size fits all answer. It depends on where the bleeding's happening. You got to start where it's more severe. So let's say hypothetically, you do an audit, some deep thinking around, let's say there's 3 people that have to get pulled out of here because they're the ones that are actually deteriorating the foundation of the culture. The foundation is fine, but there's 3 individuals that need to be pulled out. Figure out that succession planning right away, and either you go left or you go right. You can't go down the middle. You have to make hard decisions quickly. From there, if it was just a few individuals that were kind of deteriorating the foundation of the culture, then what I would do is evaluate, okay, what is our interview process like? Because somehow these individuals were able to get inside the party, right? Look at that. One of the things that I was taught earlier about protecting culture is inspect what you expect. So if you expect to be operating a certain way, you need to look under the hood, audit formally every quarter. If it's not just 3 individuals and it's a whole systemic thing inside the entire company, I would go back to square one and really ask yourselves, why am I building this? For me, profit is an outcome. I wrote a book in 2018 called People First Culture, Build a Lasting Company by Shifting Your Focus from Profits to People. I do believe in earning a profit. I expect to see 20% net margin every single month. How I go about that, Gene, is culture first, people first. So if you feel like this isn't it, this isn't what I was trying to build, or you've had a paradigm shift in terms of what you're building, you need to start from square one and do some deep critical thinking, being like, why am I even doing this? And some of the best companies that we admire as consumers have done this exercise. And for me, and I will recite the mission of our company. I don't use mission statement. It's why we work. So why we work statement. And this is it verbatim: to build a company that the world needs more of, one where everyday people are empowered to make great money, achieve career growth, and help close the income inequality gap. I am a capitalistic, but capitalism, the way that it's going right now, scares me. I see the middle class deteriorating. That worries me because I grew up being lower middle class. And I will make my money, Gene. I will build a profitable company, but it's going to be rooted in putting people first. And I sleep well at night because I know our team members are paid more than our competitors.
Michel, it's been great to talk to you about this culture and the impact that it is in our businesses. I'm just so excited to have you here and for you to share your wisdom.
Thank you, Gene.
Fantastic interview about reimagining company culture. Now, all of the stuff inside this interview, from the interviewing process, the questions that he gave, are really something I want you to think about. Maybe you wrote them down. Maybe you want to go back and re-listen to this and write them down. It really will help you create the kind of business that people love to work at, and they're really engaged with the service, the mission, and the customers. And that will affect your bottom line. If you aren't getting that kind of results and you want to lead more powerfully, if you want to have a better culture, let's do a deep dive on your business and have that conversation that I mentioned earlier. But let's go into it. Let's really shine a light on what's going on. Just go to genehammett.com and schedule your call. Now, inside the conversation, we will have a unique perspective of what's missing and really help you figure out what's next and how to prioritize moving forward. I'll give you the game plan. If you want to take it and run with it, that's absolutely fine. I know that you'll get value and you will come back at some later point. Otherwise, then I guess you will ignore what I'm saying right now and you'll just continue to do what you've already done. That's your choice as well. If you want to have the conversation, go to genehammett.com and schedule a call. When you think of growth and you think of leadership, think of Growth Think Tank. As always, we encourage. We'll see you next time.